Hi, this is Shanna with Caffeinated Craftiness, here today with a fun new project, actually two, featuring embossing folders. I will be using these two embossing folders to create two different cards. I believe I got these at Michael's a while back, so they are branded, but I believe they're recollections. One creates an all-over heart pattern, the other one does like a heart frame. So we're going to use both of those. This is a gel print I did with like pink, white, and gold, I think, and the other one's just plain white cardstock. With the white cardstock, I'm going to be using a piece of pattern paper from Not Too Shabby. It's from her My Sweet Valentine paper pad. It's meant to look like glitter, and I thought it really added to the Valentine feel of the card. On one of the cards, I'm going to be using the scallop border die from Simon Says Stamp. And then I have this sentiment from Cracker Box Stamps. And I have an additional die set I will be using from the Rabbit Hole Designs. It's their Hugs die, which is absolutely perfect for my Valentine. It also comes with a shadow, but I won't use the shadow today. So let's get started. I'm going to start my cards with the all over heart embossing folder on my gel print. On this one I will also be using that scallop border die, so that's why it is on screen. I decided I wanted to use both craft and my gel print to have the embossed pattern on this, so I'm going to emboss both of them. But if you're going to die cut, you want to die cut before you emboss anything, because you'll end up flattening out all the texture you get from your embossing folder. So I have my shadow out for that Hugs die right now because it helps me figure out my placement. I didn't want to cut so much off. I didn't have a spot for my sentiment, and I really kind of wanted it tucked in down on that bottom right. So I used the shadow to help me figure out where I wanted that scallop border to go. After I had all the placement figured out, I'm grabbing it and putting it on my die cutting plate. My die cutting plate is the iCrafter Pro Deck, the magnetic one, and I am in love, guys. I hadn't had a magnetic deck before, and it makes it so much easier. I don't have to tape anything. It holds my die in place and it doesn't move. So all I did was put it right on. The magnet's holding it. I double checked my placement really quick with that shadow. Add another top plate, and then I can die cut. Coming back from die cutting, it's nice and crisp, and I'm ready to emboss. I did have to poke out a couple of those little polka dots or stitch dots, I'm not quite sure what they are, and I just used a pair of tweezers to do it really quick. They came out really easy. They just wanted to stay in after being die cut. So I'm going to go ahead and slide it into my embossing folder here in a second, but I wanted to see how it fit on the craft panels. So all I do is I line it up with the very top of that embossing folder, close the embossing folder, and then whichever die cutting machine you use, you're going to follow whatever sandwich you need. I use a Big Shot at the moment, so the sandwich could be different from what you use. I'm going to emboss that craft panel as well in the same way, lining it up with the very top of the folder, and then they will actually kind of nest into each other a little bit. You can tell I was a little off, but that won't affect our end result because I can just trim that to line up, which is what I will do. I'm going to go ahead and use some glue to glue them together. This is the Barely Arts glue, which I absolutely love with that fine tip applicator, and it dries really quick, so it's nice. So I'm somewhat liberal with the glue, but you don't want so much you warp your paper, which this glue generally won't anyways. And then I'm just going to nest them right in to each other, kind of like a puzzle. So the pattern ends up looking continuous, like I embossed both at the same time. I didn't do that because you don't tend to get that deep dimension like you do when you do them single. So I'm just grabbing my trimmer really quick and I'm just gonna trim up the sides so they're all even. That way I still have my continuous pattern to look at, but it looks like they lined up. After it's been trimmed, we're gonna go ahead and adhere the die cut. Like I said, I didn't use the shadow this time, but you easily could and it would look super cute. So I just have a pair of reverse tweezers that I'm gonna use to hold while I add my glue, and it just makes sure I don't get the glue all over my fingers at the same time. Line that up into the corner, and then I just have to add the H, and the die cut's on. The card's just about finished. So at this point, I just have a craft card base, and I'm going to take foam tape and adhere it to the base, and that finishes up this card. I do like to make sure the foam tape is all over, including supporting the middle, because things get smushed. Applying wet adhesive over my foam tape gives me a little bit of wiggle room when I go to center it on my card panel without it sticking and not being able to reposition. I used my Pro Deck as a little bit of pressure to make sure it all glued flat. So now we're going to move on to our second card. And here I was deciding which orientation I wanted to do, whether I wanted portrait or whether I wanted landscape. This embossing folder happens to work either way for your design. So I took the white cardstock, and as you can see, you can either get debossed or embossed. So you can have an impression like letterpress, or you can have it raised. It's a preference as to which one you want to do. I chose to use the raised side. And now I'm grabbing my Misty, and I'm going to, I like to actually tape it a little bit in, especially when I'm using the rubber stamps instead of the clear stamps, because they are a little bit thicker. I'm going to use my rabbit hole anti-static tool. I love this thing. It works beautifully. And then I'm going to come in with some embossing ink. I happen to have the Ink on 3 Juicy Pad. It is generally the one I use. I use that and Versamark kind of interchangeably, but the Ink on 3 tends to sit on my desk more. I do double stamp. Then I'm going to come in with Ink on 3 Strawberry Champagne. I thought I was going to use white, and then I went, wait, it's on white paper. So Strawberry Champagne, it's almost like a rose gold, super pretty, and I thought it really felt like a good addition to the Valentine theme. So clean up so I don't dump it out, because I might have done that before. Going to go ahead and heat emboss that. I have got to figure a better way to heat emboss on camera, because nobody wants to see a hot mess, and this was awkward. But I did leave it in because it's kind of fun to watch it change. So after it's all melted, it gets that nice little shiny raised look, and it's done. This sentiment I thought actually just kind of spoke volumes and worked really well alone. So I didn't add any stamped images. I'm gluing it straight onto that pattern paper, so you have a little bit of matte of the glitter paper behind it. And this paper is printed, so it's not actually glitter. So it was kind of fun to work with, so I didn't have to worry about that texture. I'm adding it straight onto a white note card that I chose to do side folding with still that landscape. I kind of think it's a little more fun. A little bit more glue and centering that. I almost left the card just like this. Then I decided, why not embellish? I mean, because embellishments are fun, and I tend to hoard my embellishments. So I did grab some little clay hearts and added them. This is a Trinity Stamps mix that I don't think is available anymore. I will see if I can link to a similar one, but all I did was pull the little clay hearts out. It has a mix, so there's some bigger ones for sure. And then I used their pickup stick to help me place them. Helps me glue them, and it helps me actually get them out of that container without dealing with the rest of them as well. So after I had the ones I wanted, all I did was glue those down, and that finishes up this card as well. I worked in sets of 3 because I thought it'd be, it helps highlight the little corners of the embossing folder, which I thought was kind of fun. So Embossing Folder Fridays, I'll tell you guys a little bit about that for a second. Embossing Folder Fridays is something a group of us are doing just to kind of bring back stuff that we've had. We might buy a new one, but mostly we have these embossing folders and they sit there. I love embossing folders, but I always forget to reach for one. So this is a super fun challenge for me to kind of use what I have already and think outside the box. What can I pull in that works with these? Thank you guys so much for joining. I hope you like the video. If you do, please sure to hit that button and subscribe. And I will see you all again soon. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay crafty. Bye-bye.